Welcome to Outlook Money's Retire Right series. This episode is part of the Investor Education and Awareness Initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund in association with Outlook Money. Our topic of discussion today is the art of deploying your retirement corpus. It's one thing to accumulate a retirement corpus, and of course, it's a very important aspect. But it's totally another to deploy it properly to ensure a regular cash flow and make it last a lifetime without any financial strain. So imagine a situation where you spend a large portion of your corpus on traveling soon after you retire. This could, of course, potentially lead to a shortfall in terms of funding for life and for the other goals that you need during the retirement phase. So that is why we thought that, tackling this topic is very, very crucial in this debate on retirement planning. So I have three experts to tackle this subject today. Who will help you guide on how to avoid such potential pitfalls and how you are able to divide up your corpus in the right manner. I'm Nidhi Sinha, editor Outlook Money, and I have with me, first of all, Mr. K.S. Rao, who's the head of Investor Education and Distribution Development at Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC. Mr. Rao has been striving to take financial literacy and investor education to various demographic segments across geographies. We also have with us Mr. Suresh Sadagopan, a SEBI registered investment advisor and founder of Ladder 7 Financial Advisories. He has also authored a book called If God Was Your Financial Planner. The third expert today is Mr. Suraj Kaely. Who is the founder and master coach for the Sales Accelerator program at Reflect and Grow. He has been in the leadership teams at key AMCs in India and has worked relentlessly to market the SIP concept in India and has also worked tirelessly on the retirement planning front. So let me start with the interview, with this panel discussion right away. And welcome to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'll start with you, Mr. Rao. Uh, if you could share your thoughts on this third phase, what we are calling deployment or the distribution phase, what are the checks and balances one should put in place?
Thanks, Nidhi. Thanks for this session. And it's third in the row. And great to be between Suresh sir and Suresh ji. And it's always, and both of them are veterans, probably when you said experts, and they are the experts. I think I'm in between learning from both of them. And of course, lot from the Outlook Money too. And for the audience, I can only say, in the last, most of you would are aware that Outlook Money, it's the 40 after 40 conclave, which has happened in Mumbai. And from there, the next one is happening in Delhi. Between these two, it has been a discussion around why should not we have this continuation. And this is the third in the series. Thanks to Nidhi for this idea. And the third one is incidentally coming at the third stage of the retirement. And, we spoke about accumulation, we talk about transition, and this is about, transition, which can be predominantly a consolidation, and this could be a decumulation or distribution phase. And what are the checks and balances one need to look at? Probably, you will not get your salary check, how you can get your balance available to get you that check every month. And, it's protecting the corpus, what you have accumulated over a period of time, and that can flow for you for your lifetime, and what kind of life you intend to lead and how you can look at. I think in the last session, I was talking about when it is called a golden age. This is a period if you are entering into that gold and you need to make that gold to shine. And as I can only repeat what I said last time is that's GOLD. What you need to do is ensure you are gainfully engaged. And that G starts for, and O is optimally invested, and L is look for your lifestyle, which can match your corpus and manage the lifestyle. And the last one is have the discipline to stick to it, because, this is a stage of life where income stops, but expenses goes off. If you are not having a discipline, that could be a challenge. Probably, what is that we can do differently? We can't change everything, on 60 or the time you are retiring, some at 50, some at 40. Not world will change tomorrow morning, but your life is going to change. And you have enough and longer life to live. All that what you need to do is take a pause and how you can look at what is that gradual shift you can make it. And the best part I always say is if you have a financial coach with you, you are half done the job. rest of the things, your coach is there to take care. But have you ensured that your emergency fund, the first priority? Then have you got the sufficient liquidity? And look at where you are standing today. I mean, take that call, how much you have, that consolidation phase where you are looking at how that can happen. And then you have a period of buckets. I'm sure both of them will dwell about how you need to move forward, and what kind of risk you can take, what kind of risk you can't take, how much withdrawal you can do it. I mean, effectively bucket under that gold. I mean, optimally invested and stay longer.
Right. So those were some of the factors that we must keep in mind, especially people who are retiring and are sitting on a retirement corpus. Continuing the same debate, I'll come to you, Mr. Kelly. You have done a lot of work in this space. In fact, all of you have done a lot of work in this space. But what are, according to you, some of the basic things to keep in mind in this regard?
So first of all, thank you, Nidhi, for inviting me, and thanks, Mr. Rao, for reaching out. This is a subject which is very close to my heart. So, and whatever work I have done, also relates to my own personal retirement. So when I've reflected on, how I'm going to manage my finances in retirement, I realized that whatever I had learned over 3 decades of investing, I need to relearn almost everything again. So first of all, the general expectation is that in the distribution phase, you have created a corpus and you're looking for security, right? You want safety in your income, you want a steady cash flow, and typically that takes you to products like annuities. You may buy systematic withdrawal plans and income funds, but fixed income investments. But think of this scenario that if you tend to retire a bit earlier, or even if you retire, let's say at age 60, you would have 30 years at least, because of increasing life expectancy. And 30 years is a very, very long period of time. And inflation, which we call the slow poison, right, really can hurt you very badly. So if you have got, let's say, a crore of rupees on retirement and you feel very secure about your retired life, but you realize that in 30 years, it is just one third of this value or even lower. So in real terms, you lose out. And typically, when you get into fixed income in a very aggressive manner, you start realizing that inflation hurts you very badly. So the first thing I keep reminding everyone is that keep this track of inflation, because it won't hurt you in the next 3 or 5 years, but it'll hurt you eventually, right? So it will start hurting after 8 to 10 years into retirement. The second thing is, when you're setting up a return goal for your investment, whichever way you do it, it's also important to define a risk goal, right? So I define the risk goal in the terms of drawdowns. Basically, whatever peak value of investments that you reach, how much will it erode if markets were to go south, right? And generally, I recommend a cap of 20% on drawdowns, that you should create a portfolio in a manner that whatever happens in the marketplace, you don't lose beyond 20%. And obviously, you have to take that risk, a little bit risk in the market, as I mentioned, because you have to ensure that the money lasts and beats inflation. So you don't have a choice but to do that. The third thing which is important is to be mindful of taxation, right? So a lot of times we do all calculations on a pre-tax basis, but your expenses are generally incurred on a post-tax basis. So you don't want taxation to eat away from your returns. So if I have to give you just a thumb rule, for every 10,000 rupees of income that you want to generate, you need a corpus of about 25 lakhs. So I generally give this advice to everyone, that keep your withdrawals at less than 5% of your corpus. That's a safe withdrawal rate to have in retirement.
Okay, that was very enlightening indeed. A lot of aspects that Mr. Kelly covered. And coming to you, Mr. Sadagopan, of course, designing your portfolio in a particular manner is very important, especially in the pre-planning stage. But a lot of people now, there is so much buzz about equity investing. People know where to invest, perhaps more than where to invest post-retirement. So, what are the options that people can choose post-retirement? Because they're often confused about how much equity, should I take equity at all? Should I be only in fixed income? But like Mr. Kelly highlighted that, inflation is a big factor that has to be considered. So what are the kind of instruments that you would suggest?
Yeah, thanks, Nidhi, for inviting me on this panel. If you would allow me to step back, I mean, I want to give some context and then I want to actually get into the question that you are asking me. So if you permit me, I can just give a 2 minute
Absolutely.
context.
Absolutely.
So the primary thing as far as retirement is concerned is that see you cannot suddenly wake up and find out that you're at 60 and all the entire corpus, whatever you have accumulated, the entire wealth that you have accumulated, now it is in some other place where it is not really appropriate from a retirement standpoint or
Hmm.
retirement income standpoint.
Hmm.
So normally as financial advisors, what we start doing is, I mean, once the person reaches say 50 plus, maybe 53, 54, 55, we start slowly bringing down the asset and positioning the asset in such a manner that for the next phase of life, which is retirement, it will be rightly placed. Okay, so when we approach 60, we should reach a point where the assets are rightly placed. Because see, again, everywhere there is a tax factor, and we have to consider the tax factor. Because if we wake up at 60 and then start redoing the whole portfolio, it is not going to be in the right interest of the client. So, so I mean, there are multiple things, there are multiple ways of looking at, say, the decumulation phase, where we need to set up an income. See, there are people who continue to work in some capacity, and they have either a consultancy kind of a thing or some money coming by the side. So we need to be cognizant of what kind of income they actually require. I mean, we don't have to set up an income which covers their entire expenses. And there are also people who are probably having a source of income through pension. So there are many people from the army background. There are people from government background who have a fairly good income coming in through the pension route, annuity route. So if those are the cases, then of course we don't have to do. But I think the predominant majority of them will look at options for getting a regular income. I think Mr. Rao had mentioned
Hmm.
that the having salary is going to stop, but the expenses don't stop. So you will have to spend on that. So I mean, again, a context here. So the point is now typically people go with what expenses they are used to in the earlier years, and they extrapolate that into the future. Normally, what we have found is that the expenses in the earlier years is not exactly going to be there in the future as well. It's not going to be exactly like that. There are so many expenses, lifestyle expenses included, and conveyance and a lot of things which may not be there in the retirement phase. Typically, when people are in the retirement phase, they have already achieved all that they want to achieve in their life, and hopefully, most of the cases, even their goals of children education, marriage, and things like that, for most people, it is all achieved. So the point is the regular expenses itself actually comes down. Now the context, now the other context is that see how much is the expense is not really known when you retire. Okay, so suppose you are spending before retirement, you have been spending, let us say 1 lakh rupees. Okay, around ballpark figure. So now after retirement, is it going to be 1 lakh or is it going to be 90,000? We don't know. So what we normally do is that we set up income for a certain portion of the expenses, let us say 60, 70,000 or something like that. We keep a fairly high liquidity by the side because especially this is a psychological behavioral aspect. A lot of people when they don't have an income and they are very very antsy about the whole thing. Okay, so when they don't have an income and especially when they don't have money in the bank, they get very perturbed. So normally we keep something like maybe 20, 30 lakhs by the side so that at any point in time, any requirement is there, it can be cashed out and it can be brought to the bank and they don't feel poor. I mean, a lot of people in retirement, even though they have a sizable corpus, they feel poor.
Hmm.
So we tell them that we are going to, by design, set up a lower income and let us understand after 1 year, 2 years, that kind of a period, what is actually the expense that you are going to incur. And then according to that, if there is a pattern that we see, we will set up further income. Now, coming to the last point, I mean, as far as setting up an income, there are several ways of setting up an income. One is, I mean, of course, senior citizens saving scheme. If it is appropriate, we also look at any pension plan. If they have been putting in NPS or something like that, that's obviously a decent choice. Then we will have to, like Mr. Kelly was saying, you have to look at always the taxation, and we will have to see whether a bond or a NCD or other instruments are appropriate. We also tend to look at debt-oriented funds, and SWP is very, very efficient
Hmm.
because the effective taxation, if you were to set up an STP, SWP, in an asset which is already there, I mean, most of the time there will be a fair amount of debt because that is how we would have done the investment over a period of time if the client had been there with us all the time.
Hmm.
So SWP is a very, very attractive option, even in the current avatar where it is all fully taxable. It is very efficient. Effective taxation can be in the ballpark of about 5% or so. That's all. So it's very, very effective. So those are some of the instruments that we will use to set up an income. I mean, there are so many approaches, like Mr. Rao was talking about a three bucket approach and things like that. There are so many approaches. We will have to really see what is appropriate for that particular client, and then we will set up the income, and the approach actually changes from client to client.
I think that is a very important point on, kind of understanding the psychology of the investor or the person who's coming to you. And financial planners, including you, Mr. Sadagopan, have highlighted that time and again. But I wanted to ask you another thing. There is one instrument that is very popular in the Indian market, which is the insurance annuity. What do you have to say about that instrument? Because that's very popular and people often go for it. Agents also often offer it to seniors that even I know. So just wanted your perspective on that.
See, I would say, I mean, I have nothing for or against any particular instrument. That is the first disclaimer. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Every instrument is there because it is useful for somebody. But as a financial advisor, what I would say is that, see, this is slightly suboptimal because during the time that you are, I mean, putting in the premium, it accumulates. And typically, if it is a typical traditional product, it is going to accumulate at the rate of maybe 5.5, 6 kind of percent. Okay. So it is going to accumulate at a certain level, which is probably much lower if had it been put in some other instrument. Okay, and secondly, I mean, at the time of retirement, maybe let us say 60, we start getting a pension. So
Hmm.
from that point of view, after that point, normally again you get maybe 5.5, 6% kind of return. So and that return is also going to be, the annuity is going to be taxable. Okay, so we don't know. I mean, when we start this kind of a pension kind of a product at say maybe 35, 40, whatever, we don't know whether at that stage, whether the person is probably going to be in a tax paying status, or whether the government policy is such that there will be taxes, higher taxes, lower taxes. We don't know at that point. So typically, I would not want to get into that. So if we are talking about immediate annuity again has the same problem of lower returns and taxation. So not a very optimal product. Now, somebody may say that this is the problem in the case of a traditional product. And what about unit link kind of a product?
Hmm.
So if you take that route, okay, then it is no different from a mutual fund. The only possible advantage of going for a unit linked pension oriented product is that, I mean, probably it is slightly more difficult to take out of that product as compared to a mutual fund. Otherwise, it really does not make any difference at all from your point of view. As I'm assuming that the insurance fund manager is managing as well as the mutual fund manager, then there will be no difference. But there is one fundamental difference in an insurance product, so which we need to keep in mind. That is at 60. Let us assume the annuity has started, and let us assume you have accumulated 1 crore. You will not be able to access that 1 crore ever. Okay, so you are going to get that pension throughout. I mean, it is your hard-earned money.
Hmm.
Okay, and you are going to get an annuity, and probably the way it is structured, you may also your nominee may also get the I mean, sum assured. The notional cash option they call it. They get it at the end of that period. That accumulation they get it at the end of the period. But if you were to need for some reason a portion of that 1 crore, it's a problem. So there are several limitations
Hmm.
in this kind of a product. And I would say in the area of pension product, I would say NPS by far is the best product available today.
Right now.
So
Yeah.
even assuming, I'll just spend one more minute. So even assuming you start at maybe 30, 35, whatever, and you accumulate a fairly sizable amount till 60, you have the option of taking out about 60%, okay, if you were to need that amount. And
Hmm.
then the balance 40% can be, again, you can start an annuity. And that also is very, very flexible. When you want to start is left to your discretion. So if somebody were to look at an annuity kind of a product, I mean, hands down, in my opinion, is NPS.
Okay, okay. Point taken. And in fact, I think the government is also pushing that product with a new with the new announcement in the budget on NPS Vatsalya. Of course, it's debatable whether that's useful, how useful, and etc. But yeah, NPS is coming up in a big way, especially with the charges very low, etc. So moving on to the next aspect of this discussion. So, Mr. Rao, what are the main risks that seniors face in terms of their finances? And what can they do to kind of safeguard themselves from these risks?
Yeah, thanks, Nidhi. I think I will go back to what Suresh sir was telling earlier. When his second point is retirement, the biggest thing is you need to plan for your risks, risk planning. And there are multiple risks. I mean, we can't anticipate everything will come at one go and hit you, but it may come at one various periods of time. We can't worry too much about it, but we need to plan for it. And that's you can't eliminate, but you can minimize. And the first risk I look at on the retirement planning is it is the longevity. How long you live, you do not know. It may be much, much longer than what you anticipate. Then the question is here, if you are outliving your retirement savings, then then have you planned for it? When I think both of them, Suresh sir and Suresh sir, both of them said about adjusting with your withdrawal rates and investing it appropriately, probably you can do some extent on the longevity risk. And the second comes, while you are investing, there is a big challenge. Part of the money definitely going to the market. I mean, on the any asset class, every asset class got its own risk. And there could be investment losses at one period of time. And as Suresh sir was rightly put it, sometimes this risk is not immediately hitting, it is only hitting the portfolio and you will bounce back. But you have a psychology part of it. It is at the retirement, you think too much of it and, oh, I have a notional loss, that's my net asset value has come down, then, I look at my net worth has come down. And that is the biggest thing. I always tell people, when you are investing in mutual funds, the day one, that's the day you have a net asset value, which is called NAV. And till the time you are not withdrawing, it is a not available value, NAV is. And the day of withdrawal, it is now available value. I mean, how you can do is you can just diversify your investments. And the one which Suresh sir spoke about is the inflation risk. I think this most of us, we can't budget rightly, or we do not have a methodology. Things may change much, much faster. I mean, in the geopolitical consideration and a lot of politics involved. I mean, how things will change, you don't know how the inflation is going to impact. That's where you need to look at, probably it's it's how you can target that inflation and how you can invest, how you can have your portfolio. I mean, I call it as a tip. One, you need to have a tax efficient. Second is inflation efficient, and it has to protect you. What kind of tip you use there. And the one which again, it's very difficult to have that risk to eliminate or get it, even to plan, is your healthcare costs, and which is going substantially. However, you plan for it, on the day something happens to you, the place of stay where you are, that is impacting your balance sheet. Somebody is traveling abroad and you got affected, and it is just sufficient for you to become bankrupt. And that's a healthcare cost, that is a biggest one. And the other risk is long-term care risk. After some period of time, you need to have somebody for the long-term care, and your children may or may not be with you, and how you plan for it. And then it comes on your portfolio, even whether you are adapt to three bucket strategy or adapt to whichever the way, you have a sequence of returns. It's a, I have planned for some kind of a withdrawal for this 3 months. I have enough ensured 3 years, this is enough liquidity, and after that. But that returns will undergo dramatic change, which you can't anticipate. It's a, and we have retirement is of so much of assumptions. Sometimes when I always believe why I need a coach here is I have a comfort to talk and I need somebody to console for that period of time. Though my problem is not solved, it is dissolved for that day. And the last risk I look at is your estate and legacy thing. How you planned for it, whether your will is at a right place, then how you can do. I mean, have you updated? Is it outdated? I know sometimes even the nominations which we talk about, the nominee itself is not there. Have you looked at it? I think there are multiple risks, but if you have the one somebody with you, just a coach, it's most of the risks have been undone.
So multiple acronyms coming in this episode from Mr. Rao, which are obviously very, very interesting for the audience, I'm sure. And what you said last is, I think sorry, I am speaking something, though I'm moderating this session. I was just watching this IC 814, the new series that has come on Netflix. And there's one of the passengers who's obviously stuck in that plane is constantly telling the miscreants that I have this list of my FDs, please give it to my nominees and dependents. But clearly he's not made a succession plan or legacy, and suddenly some kind of emergency situation arises and he really doesn't know how to convey that message to his family. So of course, very, very relevant. And the other risk that Mr. Rao touched upon, Mr. Kelly, I would like you to elaborate on that, is the the need to have a separate health fund. So a lot of people have health insurance, but as we know that health insurance come with certain they're good products, but they may have certain limitations, sublimits, waiting periods, a lot of other things. So in that scenario, how important it is to have a separate health fund for a senior citizen?
No, Nidhi, that's a wonderful question because when it comes to an health emergency, right, we don't know what kind of quantum we'll need, what is the intensity of it, and there are many other factors that come along with it. So fundamentally, when you're buying a health insurance product, right, you know for sure that yes, you have some basic cover, but to assume that that will take care of all the emergencies and everything, I think that's taking it a little bit too far. So my own assessment is let me give you a few examples. So first of all, we are seeing a lot of improvement in medical technology, right? So today we talk about knee replacement as very common, but who knows, tomorrow there'll be many other organs which you'll be able to replace, and we don't know if your health policy will cover everything, right? So there will be those advancements in technologies, but they may not get covered. Secondly, you'll also find that there are situations where as you rightly pointed out, the whatever the restrictions have been imposed as part of the health policy, whether a waiting period or you want a particular kind of bed, and you cannot, your policy has limits on room rents, etc. So suddenly you find that actually your experience has gone absolutely horrendous, when you get sick. So what a health fund really does is, that it ensures that you have access to money right away. So I do believe that when you're building your liquidity for example, medical needs. So in my case, for example, my first line is actually my credit card limits. So I have substantial credit card limits, not for anything else, but yeah, if I have to go to hospital, I just swipe my card, and now I get 40 days of free credit to figure out, how I'm going to settle it. Eventually, hopefully, I'm in my senses to do that at the end of that period. So that's an assumption I'm making here. But you need to create liquidity. As the market evolves, you will see that you will have liquidity options created by creating liens on mutual funds. That will become much easier. You can set up overdraft limits there. That market is also starting to evolve a little bit. But more importantly, I do feel that you have to keep one corpus aside, and ideally in a product that keeps you at least ahead of inflation. So what it does is that automatically there's an adjustment that is happening to inflation. So the biggest problem which I see in a health policy is that you cannot increase your limits later on, because when you try to do that, it can become very expensive, especially if you do at age 70 or 75. But if you have now put a corpus aside which is growing at least the inflation rate, what you are guaranteeing yourself is that you have the real amount of money that is required from a health perspective when you need it. So I'm a big fan of actually having an equivalent amount of my insurance policy into a health fund, not really a little bit of 5% or 10% of that. That's not going to be helpful. You have to say that if you take a 25 lakh, let's say, medical policy, you think that's good for you, then you must have 25 lakhs also of a health fund to ensure that it adjusts with real times as you go ahead.
Right. So another aspect that I'm coming to, and I'm coming to you, Mr. Sadagopan, you also talked about it slightly, you referred to it, that there are certain behavioral patterns that you have to deal with when you're dealing with clients. So in general, if we are talking to our viewers, what are the kind of behavioral patterns that you usually see in this age group, and which people should become conscious about and steer clear of?
Yeah. So in our practice, we see people having all kinds of fears and problems that they face on retirement, it is not because they don't have enough corpus. So first and foremost, let us understand that. I mean, somebody has worked maybe in a corporate or something else for 30, 35, 40 years. Okay, so I mean, their identity itself is that of that person who has worked in a certain capacity in a corporate. Okay, and suddenly there is a void. So they feel a sense of loss of maybe a portion of their personality itself, and they feel helpless from that point of view. So there is that palpitation which they feel at the time of retirement. So that it's real, huh? It's real. So, and that affects all other aspects, and then they start seeing that, okay, a salary which they used to get, they used to have a very comfortable amount in the bank all the time. And if there is a problem in that, again, they are very, very perturbed about that. And that is why normally what we suggest, and there's a behavioral aspect, we have to handle it. So we normally keep a certain good amount in the bank account also, and a very good level of liquidity by the side. Not that it is required, but if at all it is required, suddenly they want to travel somewhere or they want to gift something to their children and things like that. They should have the money. I mean, otherwise, a lot of people tend to feel poor. So this is one of the major behavioral aspects. And a lot of times they say, now that I have retired, I cannot spend so much and all that. I mean, we ask, I mean, we have been working so hard to get to this wealth level, wealth corpus, and you have so much money. And most of the people whom we are dealing with, most of them have accumulated a reasonable corpus. So they can actually live well. There is no problem on that front. But at the same time, they say, I don't want to take out from my corpus and things like that. The other behavioral aspect which we have seen is that a lot of people in the retirement phase, many of them, not all of them, are asset rich, cash poor. Okay, at least in the relative sense. So what happens is they earmark in their mind that, okay, this is for my son, this is for my daughter. I mean, and the flats or whatever assets they have are not small. They are all in crores of rupees. And if they really have some idea in mind as to what they want to do with their money, maybe using some of them will be actually helpful in living a much more comfortable life. But no, I mean, most of the people want to keep that for their son and daughter. I mean, one of the very practical things which we talk to people is that, see, your son and daughter, I mean, even if they happen to be in the country, they may not be in the same city, they may be somewhere. Today, we are all hyper busy. And suppose after a point in time, it comes to them. I mean, they will have to come here, they will have to figure out what to do with that. And if they are abroad, it is even more difficult. So it is far more easy to give them a gift. And in the time that they require. If you are at 60, maybe your son and daughter are maybe in their 30s. I'm just guessing. So if that is the case, it may be a great idea to gift at this point in time, rather than I mean, inheriting that when you are 80 or 85, when they themselves would have had a wonderful wealth all by themselves. There is no point. So that is one thing which, I mean, we nudge people. So again, people are very, on one hand, they are fine with actually giving that thing to their son and daughter at the end of their life. But in between gifting, again, a lot of people have a lot of apprehension. So will it work for me if I give so much money? What will I do? And some people go exactly on the other side also. They say, it is after all my son and daughter. Why can't I just give everything now itself? If there is any problem, ultimately they are the ones who are going to take care of me. So those kind of things, you have all kinds of these kind of sentiments and emotions coming here. And lastly, coming to our fees, I mean, we have people who say that, see, I was paying a fee at one point in time. You have earned a lot of money from me, and now I have retired, so I don't earn a salary now. So now you should not be charging fees, or you should be charging much lower. So I mean, we tell them that, boss, ultimately we have to manage your corpus. It may be 4 lakh, 4 crores, 5 crores, whatever it is, and that corpus is all you have. That is the lifetime wealth that you have created, and with this lifetime wealth, all your expenses, all your needs and goals have to be managed for the next 30 years. In fact, you require us much more today than ever before, because there is no margin for error at this point in time. So is what we say. So there are so many behavioral aspects which come to the fore when we actually have people in the retirement phase. So the one of the things which we do is to I mean, try and talk to them slightly more often, try and understand what are the things that are troubling. I mean, what is troubling one person may not be the same for another person. Okay. So, and a lot of people tend to live very poor. I mean, they have huge corpus and they say, now I'm retired, now I'm retired, so I cannot really spend, वगैरह. And so, I mean, some of them we have to tell them that please spend, you have enough money. Please spend, please give, indulge in philanthropy, whatever else you want, please do that. So, there are multiple aspects in retirement. I think an advisor is required for people in the retirement phase, is my submission.
Okay, so that is indeed a lot of counseling also along with financial planning that you guys have to do, I'm assuming. So the having the corpus at the end and managing it like you highlighted is very important, but that is another aspect that kind of makes seniors vulnerable to cyber frauds, which has become very, very common these days. So, Mr. Kelly, I'll come to you for this question. Uh, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you would advise seniors that can help them protect their corpus?
Well, let me start by saying actually the most vulnerable segment is the retiree segment when it comes to cyber frauds, right? And in fact, those who are retired 5 years, 10 years before, they are also not so familiar with technology, right? So many a times, they don't take the very basic precautions, which are necessary to counter cyber fraud. So first of all, just educating yourself that, what all things, and from a very commonsensical perspective. So, for example, you get emails where they say, okay, click on this link, and then suddenly you find that, everything is lost. So don't really ensure that you don't really click on such links ever. Similarly, you see there are a lot of wrong kind of investment promises being made, especially when it comes to mutual funds. People have set up stock advisory, channels aping the names of the fund managers, right? So one must realize that mutual fund managers will never give you stock advice. In fact, they'll always refrain from all these things, because that's what regulation doesn't permit me to do in any case. So I think educating yourself, first of all, that what are the risks that we have, especially when it comes to using technology. So simple things like building some very strong spam filters, right? So that you don't really have these coming into your mailbox in the first place. And being alert in terms of saying that, okay, if there's any such situation, then how am I supposed to really figure out and how should I address it? So where can I really go and find out some more information about this subject? So I feel that, in fact, I do feel that Amphi also has a big role to play in educating investors here. So I don't think so it's something which is being debated or talked about in as much, depth. We have seen the banking industry do it. So we have seen, a lot of ads on that subject. But I feel that time has come where even on the investment side, equipping yourselves that there are no free lunches, applying some commonsensical standard that, look, if somebody's telling you, here's a product which will double your money in the next year, that doesn't exist in the marketplace, and chasing that kind of stuff should clearly be avoided. So I do feel that a lot of it is common sense, but the reality is that there are very innovative ways in which these things are happening. So I do feel that if you were to just listen to a few episodes of how cyber fraud has happened in this industry, I think you will be better prepared to deal with such situations if you come across one.
Great. That is a lovely suggestion, and that may give me an idea also to start a separate playlist of videos on cyber frauds. But I would also like to mention that this month is Outlook Money's 26th anniversary year, and we have come out with the 26th anniversary issue, and we have tried to highlight 26, not all frauds, but maybe mis-selling spiels or financial traps that people should be aware of. So that also is
That's it.
something that our readers can really consult to get an overall idea. Of course, it is not exhaustive, but there are some common ones there. So coming to the end of this webinar, I have one question that is for all of you. What is the one advice you intend to give to the audience on retirement planning? Let us start with you, Mr. Rao.
Oh, thank you so much. And probably before I start, I'll just complete what Suresh sir said from the Amphi angle, what need to be done. I think Suresh said there is going to be a massive plan which is going to be executed from this month itself. It is a big campaign which is coming. Ab Bharat sab janega, Bharat farak pehchanega. It's like, it's a full campaign to educate on on these cyber frauds to various frauds where investor need to aware. I think it has taken a onus, and it's going to be a longer plan. It's on a various risks, not just on the mutual funds that is taking.
Fantastic.
And,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Thanks for that. And Ampi is preempted this what you are going to suggest, and it is having a larger plan. I think it
I'm
is a
delighted to
substantial.
hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, sir. It's a very, very, very nice campaign which is going to come, and it's very interesting, including how the people from various channels, including the influencers to YouTube channel, where you are going to become a victim. You should not become victim. That's a message, and it's conveyed very nicely. A lot of hard work has been done. Thank you so much for it. And
Wow.
yeah.
And it kind of comes together with the Outlook Money anniversary issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is called Bharat Fark Pehchanega. It's like, Indians are aware
Correct.
that, you can't fool us, you can't
Yeah.
do any
Yeah.
frauds. That's a very interesting piece, and it's going to be a longer campaign.
Okay.
And it's for me to put it in one sentence, I'm finding very difficult because both of them said so many things in the retirement. And this today we are talking about the distribution phase, which is important. And when I was decoding both the experts, I look at it as like, retirement planning, the decumulation is, I mean, I call it is pursue, and purpose. And you need to manage your purse, you need to pursue your life, and then you have a pulse of your life. That pulse for me, I look at as a acronym. It's what is that pulse you need? Not that pulse the day you leave it, that's not the pulse, but how you can have that pulse. One is that, in the retirement you need to find a purpose so that you have a joy of doing it. I mean, I think Suresh sir was talking about, you feel the loss of purpose. Have that purpose. It's a you manage the purse with an understanding there is a coach for you, and then you need to pursue all that what you need to with the pursue with the discipline, but have that pulse, PULSE. I mean, have the purpose, have that understanding. L is for the legacy, S is for the sustainability, and E is the economic stability. If you manage this, your retirement is done. And it's only thing, life begins at retirement, and you should not retire, but you need to renew every day.
Mr. Kelly, you can go next.
Yeah, so we all, in fact, Mr. Rao started today's session by saying that there are a lot of assumptions that we make about retirement, and that's true. We don't know what's in store for us in the future, and even I've been reflecting on this subject quite a bit. That how do we tackle this big assumptions that we are making? What will be inflation rate? What will the markets deliver? How will I tackle an emergency? And I came up with a very simple concept. I call it the sample retirement plan. So 10 years before retirement, if you were to just set up a corpus and manage it as though you would manage it in retirement, what will happen is you'll get an opportunity to test for all the assumptions. So for example, if markets correct 25% and you had over invested, let's say, for your retirement in equities, then are you able to digest that kind of a risk? Suddenly you find that the government changes the tax rates on particular products. And so how would you react to such a change? And I'm sure in a period of 30 to 40 years that we have forward, we are going to have much more challenging times to deal with. So we have seen in the last decade, it was COVID, which came in the previous decade, it was the global financial crisis. And my sense is that these are these tail events, which really are the biggest challenge in retirement because you just can't plan for it. So the way I look at it is that if you were to create a sample retirement plan and just manage it as if though you would have managed in retirement, you'll get a great idea about testing all your assumptions. And as a result, what will happen is that when actually such events happen or unfold in your retirement plan, this is not the first time you have got used to it. It's almost saying that I'm going to act in a play and I'm just doing the dress rehearsal right up front so that I really act very well and I am very successful in my play. So that would be my bit of advice, that set up a sample retirement plan. Don't wait for the last phase.
Fabulous, sir.
Thank,
Do a test
thank
run.
you, Mr. Kelly. And now, Mr. Sadagopan, you get the last word.
See, I mean, today, I think increasingly the world is becoming a much more uncertain, unstable kind of place. What we call as a black swan event. I mean, it has been happening with fair amount of regularity, and I see that accelerating as we go forward. COVID was the event. Now we have two wars going on. We don't know. I mean, a lot of I mean, pundits are predicting a World War III and things like that. We don't know where it is all going, and there is I mean instability in the US, de-dollarization. There are so many things. So it's very, very difficult for anybody to fathom how to plan for the future, especially if it is going to be 20, 30 years into the future. So I think Mr. Cayley's that idea of having a plan and then actually running that is a great idea. But within that, what I would say, I mean, broadly, what I would say as far as retirement is concerned, is that absolutely there is no other alternative to starting absolutely, I mean, right from the day you start earning. This is one of the most ignored thing, and people start realizing at 45 and 50. At 45 and 50, you really cannot, get back to the level where you had started putting aside maybe 5,000, 7,000. That will accumulate to a monster corpus. Okay, but if you start at 45, I mean, the amount of money that you have to put in is, it is going to be very, very high. So the other thing which I would say is, one is start early. The second thing is, a lot of people, while they happen to start early, they also tap into that for various requirements that come in between, which is the major problem. I mean, sometime back I had read somewhere in the papers about the employee provident fund. 80% of the people had less than 20,000 rupees in their account. That is supposed to be for a retirement. And if you are going to tap that for buying a house or maybe buying a vehicle or education of children or any other thing like that, it is possible to tap, but you are tapping and you are actually depleting the retirement corpus. So one is the discipline to stay invested throughout and not tapping into that whatever amount you are putting in for retirement, it should be there. And going forward, I mean, one needs to accelerate. I mean, you can start small. There is no problem about starting small for retirement, but one needs to accelerate along with the other goals. I mean, whatever money you're putting aside, some money should keep going up as your income goes up. And there are certain sacrosanct buckets which one should not touch. So one is EPF, and one is, I mean, if you had started a PPF, not touch that, continue keeping that. I would suggest NPS because you cannot really touch it. I mean, there are events for which you can actually take out money, but largely speaking, these are buckets in which you can keep. See, only with discipline you will be able to achieve a fair amount of corpus, which can keep you on for 30, 40 years. I mean, Mr. Rao had talked about longevity today. One of the problems that we face today is the longevity of people. I mean, it's ironic to say that, but one of the problems is people are living longer. We are all going to live longer, most of us at least, and we need to have money. We cannot really obviously go back to employment or any kind of income earning situation at that. At that ripe age of 75 or 80. So we need to start early. We need to not dip into that corpus. We need to be disciplined. We need to increase the amount that we are committing to the retirement corpus. We need to keep those buckets which are typically earmarked for retirement, like EPF, PPF, and other things for that, or NPS for that purpose. I think then we'll be okay. I mean, the black swan events are going to be there. That is something at appropriate points we'll have to see, and I mean, we have to consult what we need to do at that particular point. But these are the basics I would say we can do here and now.
Thank you so much, everyone. And the main points that are coming to me is start early, create a separate retirement fund, of course, have a retirement plan, and try to run it before the actual time comes. And what Mr. Rao said, have a purpose along with planning. Thank you, all of you, for joining this critical discussion on how to deploy your retirement corpus.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.